Billionaire spots his school friend working as a waitress. What he does next will shock you. A flat tire in the middle of nowhere? For most of us, that's just a Tuesday, right? A minor inconvenience, a frustrating delay. But when you're Adrian Voss, worth $8.3 billion, with a private jet waiting and a schedule tighter than a rocket launch sequence, it's not just a plot twist, it's an existential crisis in a dusty roadside ditch. Imagine the tech mogul, the visionary behind Ether Dynamics, known for disrupting industries and launching satellites, now stranded. His sleek electric vehicle, usually whispering silently down highways, is stubbornly listing to one side, a deflated rubber pancake where a tire should be. He's annoyed, of course, deeply, profoundly annoyed. His phone, naturally dead, his driver, currently wrestling with a recalcitrant spare tire, muttering curses under his breath that Adrian can almost hear through the closed window. So, Adrian, a man who usually has an army of assistants anticipating his every need, finds himself doing something truly novel: walking. He spots a beacon of fluorescent light in the fading afternoon sun, a dusty, unassuming diner, probably serving lukewarm coffee and yesterday's pie. He just wants a coffee, black, strong, and maybe a charger for his phone, a lifeline back to his empire. He pushes open the door, the bell above jingling a tinny welcome, and steps into a world far removed from his glass and steel offices. The air hangs thick with the scent of stale fry oil and cheap disinfectant. He scans the room, a familiar sense of irritation bubbling, when his gaze lands on the woman behind the counter. She's pouring a refill. Her movements practiced, almost automatic, and then time just stops. His breath catches. He knows that profile, and he knows the way her hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, still manages to escape in soft tendrils around her temples. He knows the subtle curve of her smile, even if it's now tinged with an exhaustion he's never seen before. It's Renee Carter, the girl who, with an almost feral intensity, once scribbled rocket sketches beside him in 8th grade science. Her enthusiasm contagious, her mind a galaxy of ideas. She's wearing a stained apron, probably polyester, cinched tight around her waist. Her smile, though genuine, doesn't quite reach her eyes, which hold a hint of weariness. And she's pretending. Oh, she's trying so hard to pretend she doesn't recognize the boy she used to call Addie, the boy who once glued his fingers together trying to build a miniature space station. Adrian's heart, usually a steady, unyielding drumbeat, slams against his ribs with an unexpected force. Renee, the brilliant, fiery Renee, the one who dared him to dream bigger, to push past self-doubt, to reach for the impossible. She was the spark, the catalyst. And now she's counting quarters in a tip jar, her dreams seemingly reduced to the clatter of ceramic plates and the hiss of an espresso machine. What Adrian does next will absolutely shatter every single assumption you have about second chances, about success, and about the true meaning of friendship. Adrian clears his throat, the sound a little rougher than he intended, cutting through the diner's ambient hum. He leans slightly over the counter, his voice a low, almost conspiratorial murmur. "Renee Carter," he says, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, testing the waters. "Do you still draw satellites on napkins?" Her hand, which had been steadily pouring coffee into a chipped mug, trembles. The dark liquid sloshes over the rim, spilling onto the counter in a dark, spreading stain. Her eyes wide with a sudden dawning horror, snap up to meet his. "Sorry, mister," she stammers, quickly grabbing a rag, her voice thin, a desperate attempt at deflection. "You've got the wrong—" He cuts her off, his own smile widening just a fraction, a familiar teasing glint in his eyes. "Your left dimple," he says, his voice soft but firm. "It gives you away every single time you lie, Renee." He remembers it from their school days, a tiny telltale indentation that appeared only when she was trying to pull a fast one. She stops wiping. Her shoulders, which had been hunched defensively, relax minutely. Then, a sound escapes her, a quiet, almost disbelieving exhale, followed by a laugh. It's a rusty sound, a little breathy, like a sigh of surrender mixed with genuine amusement. Addie Voss, she finally says, shaking her head, a genuine, albeit tired smile finally gracing her lips. Well, I'll be. Didn't know they made billionaires out of kids who once glued their fingers together trying to build a potato battery. He wants to reach across the counter, to pull her into a long overdue hug, to bridge the chasm of 15 years. But he sees the subtle way her shoulders curl inward, a protective, almost instinctual gesture. It's like she's wearing an invisible armor, a shield against vulnerability. She's not the open, uninhibited Renee he remembers. Not yet. Instead, he simply nods towards the menu board. I'll take the breakfast special, please, he requests, his voice regaining its usual calm, even as his mind races. He watches her move then, as she turns to place his order with the cook, then returns to attending to other tables. She's efficient, he notes, polished even, politely attentive, always with that practiced, weary smile. She moves through the diner like a phantom, almost invisible to the other patrons. Every table assumes she's just the help. Just another face, another uniform, serving up eggs and toast. But Adrian? Adrian sees the girl who stayed up till 2 a.m. with him, fueled by cheap pizza and boundless enthusiasm, building intricate cardboard cities on his bedroom floor. The girl who, with wide-eyed conviction, promised him they'd escape this zip code together, that their dreams were too big for this small town. He sees the raw potential, the unfulfilled brilliance, the quiet heartbreak. A fierce, almost primal urge to fix everything surges through him. One signature, he thinks. One swift transfer, and her struggles could be over. He could whisk her away from this life of stained aprons and cold coffee. But then, the illusion of his simple rescue shatters. A gruff voice from a nearby booth barks, impatient and demanding. Hey, sweetheart, my eggs are cold. And where's that extra toast I asked for? Adrian's jaw tightens, a muscle flexing in his cheek. He watches Renee. She doesn't flinch. There's no anger, no visible frustration. Instead, she turns, her smile still in place, perhaps a touch more strained but unwavering. My apologies, sir, she says, her voice calm, even soothing. Let me get you a fresh plate right away. And hash browns are on the house for the wait. She handles the man with practiced grace, disarming him with an offer of free food and a smile that, Adrian realizes with a pang, costs her a piece of her pride every time she uses it. It's not just about money, he understands then. It's about dignity. It's about respect. It's about the quiet erosion of spirit that comes with a life of service where you're often treated as less than. Rescue isn't going to be simple. Not for Renee. And certainly not for the Adrian who just wants to erase the past 15 years of her struggle. The clatter of dishes, the low murmur of diner conversations. It all fades into a distant hum as Adrian's mind drifts back, rewinding 15 years. Back to a time when their biggest concern was sneaking out onto the school roof without getting caught. He remembers them sitting there, legs dangling precariously over the edge, the small town spread out beneath them like a forgotten toy set. Renee, even then, was a force of nature. Her eyes, bright with an almost scientific curiosity, would gaze up at the stars, not just with wonder, but with a fierce, unwavering determination. I'm going to be an aerospace engineer, Addie, she'd declared, her voice ringing with conviction. I'm going to design the rockets that take us to Mars, or build the satellites that connect the world. She'd gesture wildly with her hands, outlining complex propulsion systems in the empty night air. Adrian, on the other hand, was a little more grounded, a little less outwardly ambitious. I just want to code, he'd admitted, a shy smile on his face. So, games would load faster. So I could build better worlds, even if they were just virtual ones. He'd been fascinated by the intricate logic of programming, the elegant solutions hidden within lines of code. But it was Renee who saw beyond the practical application. It was Renee who pushed him. Games are just the beginning, Addie, she'd insisted, nudging him with her elbow. Think bigger. Think about how code can change everything. You have to apply to Stanford. You're brilliant. Don't you dare sell yourself short. And he did, spurred on by her relentless belief in him. In turn, he pushed her. You have to enter the National Science Fair, Renee, he'd urged. Your satellite designs? They're revolutionary. The judges will eat it up. They spent countless late nights in his garage, surrounded by half-finished projects, the air thick with the smell of solder and ambition. They researched. They debated. They built. And they won. They actually won. He remembers the giddy euphoria, the shared cheap soda they celebrated with, the sticky sweetness, tasting like pure victory. They swore, with the earnest conviction of youth, that nothing would stop them. They were unstoppable. Their dreams were intertwined, a double helix of ambition and shared purpose. Then, senior year hit, hard, like a sudden, brutal winter storm. Renee's mom got sick, seriously sick. The kind of sick that drains bank accounts faster than you can earn them. Renee, always fiercely loyal, always putting others first, deferred college. Stanford, the aerospace dreams, they all got put on hold, indefinitely. She worked doubles, then triples, waitressing and taking on any odd job she could find, her youthful energy slowly siphoning away. Every penny went to hospital bills, to medication, to keeping a roof over their heads. Adrian left with a full scholarship to Stanford, a heavy heart, and a cracked flip phone full of texts he'd sent. Texts she never answered. He kept trying for a while, but her replies grew sparser, then stopped altogether. He built his startup in a dusty garage, fueled by ramen noodles and the ghost of Renee's encouragement. She meanwhile buried her mom, then kept slinging plates, day in and day out, so her little brother Liam could finish high school, so he could have a shot at a future she felt she'd lost. The distance between them grew, not just in miles, but in experiences and worlds. He became the Adrian Voss, the tech titan. She remained Renee Carter, the diligent waitress. When interviewers asked Adrian about the secret to his success, he'd always mention one friend, one person who believed in him when no one else did, who pushed him to aim higher. He never mentioned her name. It felt too sacred, too personal, too complicated. But he carried her with him, a quiet, insistent voice in the back of his mind. Tonight, fate, with its twisted sense of humor, hands him the tab, a bill for 15 years of unspoken words and unfulfilled promises. The diner bill, a paltry sum compared to Adrian's daily expenses, felt impossibly heavy in his hand. He pulled out a crisp $100 bill, laying it flat on the worn counter. "Keep the change, Renee," he said, his voice quiet, almost an instruction. That was $63. A generous tip by any diner standard, enough to make a small dent in a week's worries for most. But Renee, with a practiced, almost dismissive flick of her wrist, simply pushed the entire sum into the communal tip jar, her eyes still avoiding his. "That's for everyone," she murmured, her pride a palpable thing, a shield against what she perceived as charity. She wasn't taking his pity money, not directly. Adrian watched her, a knot tightening in his stomach. This wasn't going to be easy. He followed her as she moved towards the back, restocking the pie fridge, her back to him. He cornered her gently, leaning against the cool metal of the fridge door, his presence a quiet, unyielding force. "I close a deal in Denver tomorrow," he began, his voice low, urgent. "After that, I'm flying to Zurich for the Global Tech Summit. Come with me." She paused. A carton of milk half lifted from the shelf. She turned, a flicker of genuine confusion in her eyes. "Come with you? Addie, what are you talking about?" He pressed on, his gaze intense, unwavering. "Be my chief innovation officer. My right hand, my strategic visionary. I need someone who thinks differently. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. Someone who draws rockets on napkins." He paused, letting the weight of the words hang in the air. "Salary is whatever number you write down. Seriously, name your price." Renee stared at him for a long moment, a slow, incredulous smile spreading across her face. Then, she burst out laughing. It wasn't the weary laugh from earlier. This was a full-throated, genuine guffaw, so loud and unexpected that the cook startled, banged on the bell, thinking he had an order. Chief Innovation Officer? She gasped, wiping a tear of laughter from her eye. Adrian, I haven't engineered anything bigger or more complex than a milkshake swirl in 10 years. Her dreams felt so distant, so utterly out of reach, that the offer seemed like a cruel joke. Then we'll buy you a chalkboard, Adrian countered, his own smile firming, and 10 years' worth of rocket parts. We'll build you a lab, a team, whatever you need. We'll get you back to where you belong. Say yes, Renee, just say yes. The laughter died on her lips. Her eyes, still glistening from the mirth, now held a different kind of moisture. Hope. Raw, terrifying hope. But then, the practicalities of her life, the heavy chains of responsibility, pulled her back down to earth. I can't just leave, Adrian, she whispered, her voice cracking. I've got rent. Liam's in community college, and I'm paying for it. I have no safety net, no savings, no parachute. Adrian shook his head, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a persuasive, almost hypnotic tone. I'm offering you the net, Renee. I'm offering you the trapeze. I'm offering you the entire damn circus. I'm offering you a chance to build that safety net, not just for you, but for Liam, for your future. More than that, I'm offering you a chance to build something extraordinary again. She bit her lip, her gaze dropping to her worn shoes. The sheer audacity of his offer was dizzying. It felt too good to be true. And that's when the inevitable question, the one that always lurks behind grand gestures, formed on her tongue. What's the catch, Adrian? She asked, her voice barely audible. There's always a catch. Adrian hesitated. For a split second, a shadow crossed his face, a flicker of something unreadable. He lowered his voice even further, his tone suddenly serious, almost solemn. One condition, he said, his eyes locking with hers. You have 24 hours to decide, and you absolutely cannot ask why I'm doing this. You have to trust me on that. That's the price, Renee. That's the only catch. Renee stared at him, her mind reeling. He was offering her a mansion on quicksand, a dream wrapped in an impossible mystery. It was an offer that defied logic, that spoke to the deepest parts of her long-buried ambition, but demanded a blind leap of faith she wasn't sure she possessed. Adrian, seeing the turmoil in her eyes, knew he'd said all he could. He gave her a small, tight nod, then turned and walked out of the diner, the bell jingling his departure. His heart thudded against his ribs, a frantic rhythm. Outside, his driver was finally waving, the flat tire fixed, the car ready to go. Adrian left her standing there amidst the scent of stale coffee and forgotten dreams, clutching a business card that, in that moment, felt heavier, more potent than pure gold. Midnight. The diner was long closed. Renee sat hunched at the rickety kitchen table in her studio apartment. The only sound, the asthmatic wheezing of the ceiling fan above her, stirring the stale air. Bills lay stacked like a precarious paper Jenga tower on the chipped formica, each one a silent accusation, a reminder of the relentless grind. She picked up Adrian's business card again, the sleek minimalist design a stark contrast to her surroundings. Adrian Voss, CEO, Ether Dynamics. Beneath his name, a website. Her fingers, still smelling faintly of dish soap and coffee, trembled slightly as she typed the address into her ancient laptop. The screen flickered to life, sluggishly loading. What she saw made her gasp. Ether Dynamics. Market capitalization, billions. Bigger than some small countries. Cutting-edge aerospace, satellite networks, quantum computing initiatives. Her old dreams, but on a scale she couldn't have possibly imagined. He hadn't just made it. He'd conquered. And he wanted her to be his chief innovation officer. Her, the woman who spent her days serving lukewarm coffee. She opened her old physics notebook, the one she'd kept hidden away, tucked beneath a pile of old textbooks. The pages were dog-eared, the margins filled with her intricate sketches of rocket engines, orbital mechanics, and propulsion systems. Dog-eared dreams staring back at her, accusingly. This was it. 24 hours, a chance to clear her debts, to revive that engineering spark that had been smothered for so long, to maybe, just maybe, send something into space. But the silence of the condition clawed at her. You cannot ask why I'm doing this. Why the secrecy? What if he wanted publicity? A heartwarming story of the billionaire rescuing the waitress? What if he was just pitying her? A nostalgic gesture to a forgotten past? What if she said yes and then failed? Publicly? Spectacularly? The thought made her stomach churn. The world would laugh. Adrian, the brilliant Adrian, would regret his impulsive offer. She picked up her phone, her thumb hovering over Liam's contact, her younger brother, her reason for everything. She called him, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She explained, stumbling over the details, trying to convey the enormity of the offer. Liam, always the steady, pragmatic one, listened patiently. "Renee," he said, his voice calm, reassuring, "you've carried us both, sis. You carried Mom, you carried me. You put your life on hold for us. It's time. Let the universe carry you for once. Let Addie carry you. You deserve this." His words were a balm, a powerful affirmation. But even with his unwavering support, the storm inside her raged. Sleep refused to come. She paced her small apartment, the weight of the decision pressing down on her, the image of Adrian's intense gaze, and that impossible condition replaying in her mind, a relentless loop. The next day, the clock hands crept agonizingly towards 5:57 p.m. On a private airstrip just outside of town, Adrian Voss paced beside his sleek, waiting jet, the late afternoon sun glinting off its polished fuselage. He checked his watch for the 10th time in as many minutes. His heart, usually a model of calm under pressure, was doing a frantic samba. He'd given her 24 hours of agonizing silence. Just as he was about to give up hope, to admit defeat, a beat-up sedan rattled onto the tarmac, kicking up a small cloud of dust. It pulled to a stop and Renee emerged. She was still in her diner uniform, the crisp white blouse and black apron, a stark contrast to the gleaming aircraft. Her hands were visibly shaking, clutching a small, worn backpack. She looked exhausted, terrified, and utterly determined. She walked towards him, her gaze fixed on his, a silent challenge in her eyes. "I accept," she said, her voice a little breathy, but firm. "I'll come with you. I'll be your chief innovation officer. But I need to know why. I need to know why me, Adrian." Adrian's face, which had been tight with anticipation, softened almost imperceptibly. He took a step towards her, then stopped. "Renee," he began, his voice laced with a gentle warning, "remember the rule." That was the condition. She shook her head, a defiant tremor running through her. "I'm breaking it," she stated, her chin lifting slightly. "I won't sign anything. I won't step foot on that plane unless you tell me. Not one more step." Her resolve was absolute, a testament to the stubborn, brilliant girl he remembered. Adrian exhaled, a long, slow breath, a mixture of frustration and something akin to relief. He'd known deep down that she wouldn't take the easy way out. He'd hoped, perhaps foolishly, that she might. But this was Renee. "Fine," he said, the word a soft surrender. "You want the truth? The absolute, unvarnished truth?" He looked directly into her eyes, his own intense, vulnerable, in a way she hadn't seen since they were teenagers. "You're the only person who ever truly scared me, Renee. Not because you were intimidating, but because you saw through all my posturing, all my insecurities. You made me aim higher than I ever thought possible. You made me believe my silly coding dreams could actually change the world. You were the one who taught me to dream bigger than my own backyard." He took another step closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "And lately, with everything I've built, with all the billions, I've started to lose that. I've started to forget why I started, what it felt like to chase something purely for the love of it. I need you beside me, Renee. I need you to remind me. I need you before I forget how to dream altogether. That's why. That's the only reason." Silence, thick and heavy as jet fuel, descended between them. Renee stared at him, absorbing his confession, the raw honesty of it. It wasn't pity. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was a plea, a desperate, heartfelt plea from a man who, despite his immense success, felt something vital slipping away. A slow, understanding nod. She reached into her backpack, pulled out a pen, and then, With a small, knowing smile, she found a clean napkin in her apron pocket. She spread it flat on the palm of her hand. Adrian's smile as she signed was a complex mixture of profound relief and an almost terrifying anticipation. They walked side by side towards the jet, the hum of its engines a promise of distant horizons. As they boarded, Renee still smelled faintly of coffee and maple syrup, a lingering ghost of her old life. The world, she realized, as the jet taxied down the runway, was about to tilt on its axis, and she was ready for the ride. Weeks morphed into months, each one a new, exhilarating rocket stage in Renee's accelerated journey. She plunged into design sessions with the ferocity of a starved wolf. Her mind, once dulled by routine, now sparking with rediscovered brilliance. She devoured technical documents, challenged established protocols, and proposed audacious new concepts that made the seasoned engineers at Ether Dynamics sit up and take notice. Her instincts, Adrian observed, were sharper, more honed than he had even dared to hope. He watched her light up, pride swelling in his chest. But beneath that pride, a darker, more complex emotion stirred. A quiet, almost melancholic resolve. He knew his time was limited, and he needed to make sure his legacy, their shared vision, was in the right hands. One evening, Adrian called her to his private glass-walled lab, a sanctuary of innovation high above the city. The city lights glittered below them like scattered diamonds, a dizzying panorama. Renee, energized from a breakthrough in propulsion efficiency, walked in, a hopeful smile on her face, ready to discuss their next big project. Adrian stood by a large holographic display, his back to her, silhouetted against the cityscape. He turned slowly, a folder in his hand. His expression was uncharacteristically solemn. "Renee," he said, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. "Remember the condition? The one you couldn't ask about?" Her breath hitched. She braced herself. Was this it? Was he going to reveal some hidden agenda? Some convoluted business scheme she hadn't foreseen? Was he going to demand some outrageous personal favor? She steeled herself for scandal, for betrayal, for the inevitable catch she'd always suspected. Instead, he walked towards her, and with a hand that trembled almost imperceptibly, he handed her the folder. "It's time to pay up," he said, his voice laced with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher. She opened the folder. Inside were documents. Legal documents. Her eyes scanned the dense text, then widened in disbelief. They weren't about a bonus or a new project or even a promotion. They were papers transferring 51% of his voting shares in Ether Dynamics to her, effective immediately. Her voice cracked, a choked sound of utter bewilderment. "Adrian," she whispered, staring at the papers, then at him, her mind struggling to process the impossible. What is this? What are you doing?" He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, a profound weariness etched on his face. "I've been diagnosed, Renee," he said, his voice barely audible, "with early-stage Parkinson's disease. It's progressive. My hands, they'll start to shake. My focus, my motor skills, they'll deteriorate. I won't be able to steer this company, not with the precision and unwavering vision it needs. Not for long, anyway." He gestured around the lab to the city outside. "This empire, this future we're building, it needs steady hands, fearless hands. Your hands, Renee. You keep us fearless. I'll stay on, of course, as CEO Emeritus, an advisor, a consultant. But you, Renee Carter, you run the future. You always were the one who saw the farthest." Renee's knees buckled. She stumbled backward, catching herself on a nearby workbench. The shocking condition wasn't about money or fame or some twisted power play. It was about surrendering control. It was about trust, absolute and unconditional. The billionaire who seemingly had everything, the power, the wealth, the unassailable position, was now staking his entire empire, his life's work, on the girl who once traded lunches for his coding lessons, the waitress he'd found in a roadside diner. Tears, hot and unstoppable, blurred the legal jargon on the page. She realized then, with a jolt that went straight to her soul, that the 24-hour secrecy clause wasn't cruelty. It wasn't a test of faith. It was insurance. Insurance against pity, against investors shorting the stock if news of his diagnosis leaked before a clear succession plan. A strong, capable leader was firmly locked into place. Adrian hadn't just offered her a job, he'd handed her the keys to his kingdom, knowing she was the only one truly capable of driving it forward. The news hit Ether Dynamics like a meteor strike. Board members, a collection of seasoned executives and powerful investors, raged. Their voices, usually modulated and calm, echoed through the hallowed halls of the corporate tower. A waitress? 51% of voting shares? Unprecedented. Unacceptable. They saw a hostile takeover, a reckless act of corporate suicide. Headlines screamed across financial news networks and tabloids alike. Waitress hijacks tech giant. Billionaire's bizarre handover. Is Voss losing his mind? The public was in an uproar, a mix of outrage, disbelief, and morbid fascination. Renee, the newly appointed CEO, walked through fire. Every meeting was an interrogation, every decision scrutinized, every word twisted. But Adrian stood beside her, a quiet, unwavering presence. The tremor in his right fingers, now more noticeable, was a stark reminder of why they were there. He lent her his credibility, his authority, his unshakable belief. She learned to negotiate, to compromise, to stand her ground. She faced down skeptical venture capitalists, delivered presentations with a calm confidence that belied the storm raging inside her. She proved, time and again, that she could pitch to investors better, with more passion and clarity, than the boy king who had founded the company. Her vision was fresh, unburdened by corporate dogma, fueled by the same boundless imagination that had sketched rockets on napkins. The company's stock dipped, a predictable knee-jerk reaction to the perceived instability. But then, it didn't just recover. It soared. It happened when Renee unveiled her first major initiative, a revolutionary new propulsion system. It wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a game changer, slashing satellite launch costs by an astonishing 30%. Was the kind of disruptive innovation Ether Dynamics was founded on, but now with a distinctly Renee Carter signature. The world saw a miracle. They saw a brilliant new CEO, a visionary taking the reins. But Renee? She saw something else entirely. She saw a friendship, a bond forged in childhood dreams, repaying itself in real time, not just in dollars and cents, but in purpose, in legacy, in the unwavering belief of one person in another. 1 year later, the grand auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Renee Carter, CEO of Ether Dynamics, stood at the podium, her presence commanding, her voice clear and resonant. She was there to unveil a new initiative, one that was deeply personal. Today, she announced, her gaze sweeping across the diverse audience, Ether Dynamics is proud to launch the Starlight Scholarship. This scholarship is for every small-town waitress, every line cook, every service industry worker who, like me, dreams in equations, who sketches satellites on napkins, who sees the stars and knows they belong among them. It's for those whose dreams have been deferred, but never extinguished. In the front row, Adrian Voss sat quietly, a proud, almost serene smile on his face. His hands, for now, were still. He watched Renee, a profound sense of peace settling over him. This was the future he had envisioned, the legacy he had entrusted. Renee paused, then looked directly at Adrian. But this story isn't just about the scholarship, she continued, her voice softening, becoming more intimate. It's about a profound act of trust, a friendship that rerouted destinies. She gestured for Adrian to join her on stage. As he slowly made his way up, a ripple of applause swept through the room. Renee turned to the audience, her eyes shining with emotion. I want to tell you the full story, she began, her narrative weaving through their shared past. The flat tire, the diner, The cold eggs, the impossible offer, the devastating truth of his diagnosis, and the audacious transfer of power. She spoke of how inspiration travels in both directions, how the seemingly mundane inconvenience of a flat tire can reroute entire destinies. She spoke of how the most shocking condition wasn't about money or power, but about the purest form of trust. Adrian didn't just give me a job, she concluded, her voice thick with emotion. He gave me back myself. He reminded me who I was, who I always was meant to be. Cameras flashed, capturing the raw emotion of the moment. Renee turned to Adrian, her eyes brimming. She knelt gently and wrapped her arms around him, a silent, powerful embrace that spoke volumes. "Thank you, Adrian," she whispered, her voice choked. "Thank you for seeing me as more than just this job. Thank you for never letting me forget." Adrian, his own eyes moist, gently patted her back. His voice, softer now, a little raspy, was just for her. "You never stopped being her, Renee," he whispered back, a profound truth in his words. "You just forgot for a little while, and I needed you to remember." The crowd erupted, a standing ovation that shook the auditorium. It wasn't just for the scholarship or the innovation. It was for the story of human connection, of resilience, of a trust that defied all expectations. If this incredible story reminded you that big breaks often wear the most unexpected disguises, or that the people who shape us can come back into our lives in the most profound ways, then hit that like button right now. Share this with that one friend who once believed in you, the one who pushed you to be better. Because kindness, my friends, is truly the ultimate currency. And hey, don't forget to subscribe for more moments that prove life's most shocking twists often lead to the most beautiful destinations. Drop a comment below. If fortune handed you a napkin contract tomorrow, who would you thank? Who's that unsung hero in your own story? Because sometimes, the most shocking thing a billionaire can do is simply hand over the keys and say, "With complete and utter faith, I trust you."